is an audio renaissance presentation.
Hello, I'm Bill Hartley, president of Audio Renaissance Tapes, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to our presentation of one of the most influential self-help books of all time, Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. As we were preparing this program, we were fortunate to gain access to a unique archive of recordings by Dr. Maltz. And so, on these tapes, you'll not only hear material from the best-selling book, but you'll also hear related comments from Dr. Maltz himself, recorded in studio, as well as anecdotes and stories recorded live on location at various seminars and lectures. Although the quality of the location recordings is uneven, we've restored the tapes as much as possible. We thought you'd enjoy this rare opportunity to hear Dr. Maltz at his best, live before an audience.
You are invited to join Dr. Maxwell Maltz, the author of the book Psycho-Cybernetics, on the greatest adventure of your life. It will be your greatest voyage of discovery, the discovery of your big self. You, with your own strength, can change your life for the better through Psycho-Cybernetics. What is Psycho-Cybernetics? It is not merely a psychology or philosophy of life. It is not positive thinking. It is positive doing. It is a guide, a gateway to creative living.
Cybernetics, what does it mean? First of all, it comes from a Greek word which means a helmsman, a man who steers a ship to port. And psycho-cybernetics is a word I coined which means steering your mind to a productive, useful goal so that you can reach the greatest port in the world. Peace of mind. Now, psycho-cybernetics means many, many things. It means how to improve your self-image, how to stand up under stress, how to turn a crisis into an opportunity. It means the conquest of frustration. It means the art of communication. Psycho-cybernetics isn't a cult. It isn't a religion. It's just a way of life to get more living out of life, to make you the big you the greater share of the time rather than the little you. It also means, most important of all, the search for your self-respect.
Dr. Maxwell Maltz specialized in plastic surgery, but made some very interesting discoveries in the field of psychology. He found that many amazing changes often occur quite suddenly and dramatically in a person's personality when you change his or her face. But it was his failures that taught him the most. Some patients showed no change in their personality after surgery. Some patients who had a freakish feature which was corrected by surgery continued to feel inadequate and experienced feelings of inferiority. These patients continued to feel, act, and behave just as if they still had an ugly face.
A young girl came to my office many, many years ago. She was 18, a beautiful blonde child. She had a scar on her left cheek. I operated on her, and when I removed the final dressings from her cheek, I was very, very proud of the result, and I said, "Take a look at yourself in the mirror." She looked. "Well, doctor, I don't see any difference. I was 25 years younger. It fractured my ego." I said, "What do you mean that you don't see any difference? Here's a picture taken immediately after the accident. Don't you see the scar?" She looked. "Yes, I see the scar." "Well, take a look at yourself in the mirror again." She looked and finally said, "Well, doctor, I see a difference, but I don't feel any different." 2 years before the accident, she was engaged to a young man who suddenly ran off and married someone else. Now, that left her with hurt feelings, with feelings of remorse, with feelings of resentment, with feelings of guilt that she was nobody. And I said, "My dear child, how could you hold yourself responsible for something you didn't do? You didn't run away, he did. Now, for goodness sake, why do you blame yourself?" Now, that experience opened up a whole new vista, a whole new horizon for me. I realized that a plastic surgeon deals with scars on the faces of 1% of the population. And I said to myself, wouldn't it be a marvelous idea if I could write a book for the 99% of people with normal faces like yours and like mine, who have some inner corrosion, a scar that they put there themselves inside. I said, wouldn't that be a marvelous idea if I could write a book and teach people to be their own plastic surgeon? Not using a knife, of course, but a little compassion for themselves, to dig deep, deep, deep within them, to remove the scar they put there themselves.
Many people have inner emotional scars who have never suffered physical injuries. The result on personality is the same. These people have been hurt or injured by someone in the past. To guard against future injury from that source, they form a spiritual callus, an emotional scar to protect their ego. This scar tissue, however, not only protects them from the individual who originally hurt them, it protects them against all other human beings. An emotional wall is built through which neither friend nor foe can pass. Dr. Maltz began to realize that the physical image itself was not the real key to changes in personality. There was something else which had to be changed before the person could feel good about himself. It was as if personality itself had a face. This non-physical face of personality seemed to be the real key to personality change. If it remained scarred, distorted, ugly, or inferior, the person himself acted out this role in his behavior regardless of the changes in physical appearance. If this face of personality could be reconstructed, if old emotional scars could be removed, then the person himself changed, even without facial plastic surgery. Dr. Maltz became more and more convinced that the self-image, or the individual's mental and spiritual concept or picture of his or herself, was the real key to personality and behavior. Numerous other case studies show that the self-image is the key to human personality and human behavior. Change the self-image, and you change the personality and behavior. The self-image sets the boundaries of individual accomplishment. It defines what you can and cannot do. Expand the self-image, and you expand the area of the possible. The development of an adequate, realistic self-image will seem to imbue the individual with new capabilities, new talents, and literally turn failure into success. Today, there is irrefutable clinical evidence in the field of psychology that there are success-type personalities and failure-type personalities, happiness-prone personalities and unhappiness-prone personalities, and health-prone personalities and disease-prone personalities. We will discuss these characteristics later in this tape. Psycho-cybernetics throws new light on these and many other observable facts of life. It throws new light on the power of positive thinking, and more importantly, explains why it works with some individuals and not with others. Positive thinking can work only when it is consistent with the individual's self-image. It literally cannot work when it is inconsistent with the self-image, until the self-image itself has been changed. In order to understand self-image psychology and use it in your own life, you need to know something of the mechanism it employs to accomplish its goal. Scientific evidence shows that the human brain and nervous system operate purposefully in accordance with the known principles of cybernetics to accomplish goals of the individual. The brain and nervous system constitute a marvelous and complex goal-striving mechanism, a sort of built-in automatic guidance system which works for you as a success mechanism or against you as a failure mechanism, depending on how you, the operator, operate it and the goals you set for it. The science of cybernetics does not tell us that man is a machine, but that man has and uses a machine. Moreover, it tells us how that machine functions and how it can be used. Self-image is changed for better or worse, not by intellect alone, but by experiencing. You developed your self-image by your creative experiencing in the past. You can change it by the same method. Your present state of self-confidence and poise is the result of what you have experienced rather than what you learned intellectually. You have probably been told all your life, nothing succeeds like success. And that is true. Memories of past successes act as built-in stored information, which gives us confidence for the present task. But how can a person draw upon memories of past successful experiences when one has experienced only failure?
Psychoanalysis deals with the illnesses of yesterday. And psycho-cybernetics is quite different. It tries to keep you emotionally, spiritually, and mentally healthy now. What happened yesterday doesn't count anymore. It's what you are now that counts. Psycho-cybernetics is self-hypnosis. By auto-suggestion, you find the good in you instead of your defects, your inner scars. You become your own plastic surgeon by having a proper self-image, and with a little compassion for yourself, you remove the inner scars you put there yourself. You become your own Michelangelo, and with a little compassion, you chip off the negative feelings that every human being is heir to. Michelangelo, when he was younger, looked at a stone quarry, and he saw a huge block of stone, and he said, "I see Moses there." And he took a hammer and a chisel, and he chipped away, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, and after 2 years, there was Moses. And you are Michelangelo in your own right. You could chip off the negative feelings of frustration and despair from the personality that is you to find the big you. And how do you do it? By auto-suggestion. I say in my book, the mind cannot tell the difference between an actual experience or one vividly imagined. And you can imagine success if you think in terms of your own capabilities, and you can become successful. And when you use your imagination creatively, that's a form of hypnotism. The secret of psycho-cybernetics is not so much hypnotism as to de-hypnotize yourself from negative feelings. You hypnotize yourself into the belief that you're bigger than what you are, which is a form of using your imagination creatively, and de-hypnotizing yourself from the negative beliefs that you can't do it. It's impossible. The point is, nothing in the world is impossible.
In this tape, you will be asked to practice certain exercises and perform tasks, but they must be done regularly if you are to derive maximum benefit from them. Before you become discouraged, keep practicing for a minimum period of 21 days. It usually takes that long before you will realize any perceptible change in your mental image. Following plastic surgery, it takes about 21 days for the average patient to get used to his new face. When an arm or a leg is amputated, the phantom limb persists for about 21 days. People must live in a new house for about 3 weeks before it begins to seem like home. It requires a minimum of about 21 days for an old mental image to dissolve and a new one to gel. You can neither prove nor disprove with intellectual argument the ideas and concepts described in this tape. You can prove them to yourself by doing them and judging results for yourself. Don't make a judgment for 21 days so that you will give yourself a fair chance to prove or disprove their validity in your own life. The building of an adequate self-image is something that should continue throughout a lifetime. You cannot accomplish a lifetime of growth in 3 weeks' time, but you can experience improvement within 3 weeks' time, and sometimes the improvement is quite dramatic. Just as disease can be diagnosed by a doctor from certain symptoms, failure and success can also be diagnosed. This is possible because people don't simply find success or failure, they carry the symptoms with them in their personalities. Within each person is a goal-striving mechanism, and to use it properly, individuals must have a clear-cut goal or target to shoot for. Many times people want to improve themselves and long for a better personality, but they have no clear-cut idea of the direction in which improvement lies, or what constitutes a good personality. Quite simply, a good personality is one which enables us to deal appropriately and effectively with our environment and with reality, and to gain satisfaction from reaching goals which are important to us. The success-type personality has 7 basic characteristics according to Dr. Maltz in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics. The first one is sense of direction. When you have no personal goal which interests you and means something to you, you are likely to go around in circles, feel lost, find life itself purposeless. You are built to conquer environment, solve problems, achieve goals, and you will find no real satisfaction or happiness in life without obstacles to conquer and goals to achieve. When people say that life is not worthwhile, they are really saying that they have no personal goals which are worthwhile. The prescription to overcome this deficiency is to find a goal or project worth working for. Decide where you are going. Always have something ahead of you to look forward to work for and hope for. Your body doesn't function well when you stop being a goal striver and have nothing to look forward to. This is the reason that very often when a person retires, he or she dies shortly thereafter. When you're not goal-striving, not looking forward, you're not really living. The second characteristic of a success-type personality is understanding. Understanding depends upon good communication and is vital to any guidance system. You cannot react appropriately if the information you act on is faulty or misunderstood. Many doctors believe that confusion is the basic element in neurosis. Most of our failures in human relations are due to misunderstanding. We expect other people to react and respond and come to the same conclusions as we do from a given set of facts or circumstances. Remember that no one reacts to things as they are, but to their own mental images. People don't disagree with you to be hard-headed or malicious. They disagree because they understand and interpret the situation differently from you. Give the other person credit for being sincere rather than malicious, and it will go a long way toward better understanding. Ask yourself, how does this appear to other people? How do they interpret the situation? How do they feel about it? Try to understand why they act the way they do, and just as important, why you act the way you do. Too often we color incoming sensory data with our own fears, anxieties, or desires. To deal effectively with environment, we must be willing to acknowledge the truth about it. Only when we do this can we respond appropriately. Many of us are guilty of not liking to admit, even to ourselves, that we can be wrong. We fool ourselves into believing that a situation cannot be other than we would like it to be. The success-type personalities not only do not cheat and lie to other people, they learn to be honest with themselves. Sincerity is based upon self-understanding and self-honesty. The prescription for overcoming lack of understanding is to look for true information concerning yourself, your problems, other people, a situation, whether it is good news or bad. Remember, it doesn't matter who's right, but what's right. In dealing with other people, always try to see the situation from their point of view as well as your own. The third characteristic of a success-type personality is courage. Having a goal and understanding the situation are not enough. You must have the courage to act, for only by actions can goals, desires, and beliefs be translated into realities. All problems, from personal to global, become smaller if you don't dodge them, but confront them. Often the difference between a successful person and a failure is not better abilities or ideas, but the courage that one has to bet on one's ideas, to take a calculated risk, and to act. Standing still or failure to act causes people who are faced with a problem to become nervous, feel impotent or trapped, and can bring on a host of physical symptoms. You need to study the situation thoroughly. Go over in your mind the various courses of action possible to you, and the consequences which may follow from each one. Pick the course which gives the most promise, and go ahead. If you wait until you're absolutely certain before you act, you will never do anything. Anytime you act, you can be wrong. Any decision you make can turn out to be the wrong decision. But you must not let this deter you from going after the goal you want. You must have the courage daily to risk making mistakes, risk failure, risk being humiliated. A step in the wrong direction is better than staying on the same spot all your life. Once you're moving forward, you can correct your course as you go. Your automatic guidance system cannot guide you when you're stalled. The prescription for overcoming a lack of courage is to be willing to make a few mistakes, to suffer a little pain to get what you want. Don't sell yourself short. Most people don't know how brave they really are. You have the resources, but you never know you have them until you act, and give them a chance to work for you. But don't wait until you can become a big hero in some dire crisis. Daily living also requires courage. By practicing courage in little things, we all develop the power and talent to act courageously in more important matters. The fourth characteristic of a successful personality is charity. You need to have interest in and regard for other people. Respect others' problems and needs. Respect the dignity of human personality, and deal with other people as human beings, not objects to be used. Recognize each person as a unique individual who deserves dignity and respect. It is a psychological fact that our feelings about ourselves tend to correspond to our feelings about others. When a person feels more charitable about others, he invariably begins to feel more charitable towards himself. We will develop a better and more adequate self-image when we begin to feel that other people have worth. Your prescription for becoming more charitable is to develop a genuine appreciation for people. Take the trouble to stop and think of the other person's feelings, viewpoints, desires, needs. Think of other people as being important and treat them accordingly. The fifth characteristic of a successful personality is self-esteem. When we doubt ourselves and feel inadequate to our tasks, we become difficult to get along with. Holding a low opinion of ourselves is not a virtue, but a vice. People with adequate self-esteem don't feel hostile toward others, aren't out to prove anything, can see facts more clearly, and aren't as demanding in their claims on other people. It is a well-known psychological fact that the people who become offended the easiest have the lowest self-esteem. We are hurt by those things we conceive of as threats to our ego or self-esteem. Even the real digs and cuts which inflict a terrible injury to the ego of the person with a low self-esteem do not make a dent in the ego of the person who thinks well of his or herself. It is people who feel undeserving, doubt their own capabilities, and have a poor opinion of themselves who become jealous easily. It is people who secretly doubt their own worth and who feel insecure within themselves, who see threats to their ego where there are none, that exaggerate and overestimate the potential damage from real or imagined threats. When people have adequate self-esteem, little slights offer no threat at all. They are simply passed over and ignored. Even deeper emotional wounds are likely to heal faster and cleaner with no festering sores to poison life and spoil happiness. Dr. Maltz points out that real self-esteem is not derived from the great things we've done, the things we own, the mark we've made, but an appreciation of ourselves for what each of us is, a unique person, a human being. The word esteem means to appreciate the worth of. How can a person stand in awe of all creation, the stars, the sea, the beauty of a flower, and at the same time downgrade oneself? Isn't mankind the most marvelous creation of all? Do not downgrade the product merely because you haven't used it correctly. The prescription for developing your self-esteem is to stop carrying around a mental picture of yourself as being a defeated, worthless person. Stop dramatizing yourself as an object of pity and injustice. Dr. Maltz says we should assume responsibility for our own life and emotional needs. Develop a more self-reliant attitude. Try giving affection, love, approval, acceptance, understanding to other people, and you will find them coming back to you as a sort of reflex action.
You must make a decision between adjusting to reality or becoming atrophic. Every day is a new day. Every day you must adjust to the realities of the day. Every day your image changes, and you can make it change for the better when you adjust to the days using your creative instinct to find the big you. The mind cannot tell the difference between a successful experience or one vividly imagined. You can imagine the big you and work toward it within your training and capabilities. You must make a decision between two philosophies if you want to improve your self-image. Go, 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 or no, no, no. Once you go, 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 even if you make a mistake, you'll correct it, and on the way you will improve your self-image. You must realize that the whole business of living is to have enthusiasm about it, and you must make a decision between enthusiasm or emptiness. Can one really change one's self-image? Absolutely. Who does the changing for the better? Why, oh, you. What is the difference between confidence and conceit? Well, there's one word that separates them, and that is humility. You must be humble when you succeed and not be satisfied with all your achievements. And you must never brag about them any more than you should complain about your failures. Humility separates the person of achievement from the person of concealment.
The sixth characteristic of a successful personality is confidence. Confidence is built upon an experience of success. When we begin a new undertaking, we are likely to have little confidence because we have not learned from experience that we can succeed. Remember, success breeds success. Even a small success can be used as a stepping stone to a greater one. An important technique to form is the habit of remembering past successes and forgetting failures. This is the way both an electronic computer and the human brain are supposed to operate. Practice improves skill and success. Repetition does not. If it did, we would perfect our errors instead of our accomplishments. Through practice and negative feedback, the computer in our brain remembers and reinforces successful attempts and forgets the mistakes. Yet many of us destroy our confidence by remembering past failures and forgetting all about past successes. We not only remember the failures, we impress them on our minds with emotion. We condemn ourselves and degrade ourselves with shame and remorse, and our self-confidence dissipates. It doesn't matter how many times you have failed in the past. What matters is the successful attempt, which should be remembered, reinforced, dwelt upon. Your prescription for developing confidence is to use mistakes as a way to learning, then dismiss them from your mind. Deliberately remember and picture to yourself past successes. Everyone has succeeded sometime at something. When you begin a new task, remember the feelings you experienced in past successes, regardless of how small they might have been. Too many people are prone to let one or two failures blot out all good memories. When you remember your brave moments, you will be pleasantly surprised to realize that you had more courage than you thought. Vividly remembering and visualizing past successes and brave moments is an invaluable aid whenever confidence is shaken.
I remember when I was a medical student, I was studying pathology, second-year medicine. And every time this Dr. Pappenheimer called upon me and quizzed me orally, I was frightened. I hated this Dr. Pappenheimer. And when I got up, I couldn't speak. I saw the 160 eyes of 80 students, and I thought they were about to ridicule me. I couldn't talk. I couldn't answer the question. And I sat down. That was a negative approach to use of imagination negatively because of a fear. When I realized that I might not become a doctor, I decided I must do something about this. It happened that when there were written examinations, and I looked through a microscope at a slide, when I didn't see that face of Dr. Pappenheimer, when I didn't see the eyes of the students, I answered correctly. And so the desire, the goal of wanting to be a doctor made me do something at a time when I knew nothing about psychocybernetics, when I knew nothing about negative and positive images, at a time when I had the desire to be a doctor. I turned a crisis into an opportunity. I said to myself, the next time this so-and-so Pappenheimer calls upon me, I will imagine that I don't see him. I will imagine that I don't see the 160 eyes of the other students. I will imagine I am looking through a microscope, looking at a slide and answering it correctly. The next time he called upon me, my constructive imagination came into good play. He was quite surprised that I wasn't fretful or fearful, and many of the students were surprised. And that's a long, long time ago, when the desire to rise above a failure prompted me to turn a crisis into an opportunity. The point is, if I can do it, so can you.
Dr. Maltz believes the seventh characteristic of a successful personality is self-acceptance. No real success, no genuine happiness is possible until a person gains some degree of self-acceptance. The most miserable and tortured people in the world are those who are continually straining and striving to convince themselves and others that they are something other than what they are. Success comes from self-expression when people relax and are not straining to be somebody else. Changing your self-image does not mean changing yourself or improving yourself, but changing your own mental picture, your own conception and estimation of that self. The amazing results which follow from developing a realistic self-image come about not as a result of self-transformation, but from self-realization. You can make the most of what's there by gaining a true mental picture of what is there. Most of us are better, wiser, stronger, and more competent than we realize. Creating a better self-image doesn't create new abilities, talents, or powers. It releases and utilizes them. Self-acceptance means coming to terms with ourselves now, just as we are, with all our faults, weaknesses, shortcomings, errors, as well as our assets and strengths. Self-acceptance is easier if we realize that these negatives belong to us, but they are not us. Many people shy away from healthy self-acceptance because they insist upon identifying themselves with their mistakes. You may have made a mistake, but this does not mean that you are a mistake. You have to recognize your mistakes and shortcomings before you can correct them. The first step toward becoming stronger is the recognition that one is weak. The prescription for increasing your self-acceptance is to begin by learning to tolerate imperfection in yourself. You must recognize your shortcomings, but don't hate yourself because of them. Learn to distinguish between yourself and your behavior. You are not ruined or worthless because you made a mistake or got off course, any more than a typewriter is worthless because it needs adjustment, or a violin when it's out of tune. Don't hate yourself because you're not perfect. Say to yourself, I may not be perfect. I may have faults and weaknesses. I might have gotten off the track. I may have a long way to go, but I am something, and I will make the most of that something. Accept yourself, be yourself, and resolve to realize the possibilities inherent in that special and unique something which is you.
Say to yourself, if I have a low opinion of myself, others will too. It is a vice I must overcome. I must stop carrying a mental picture of myself as defeated. I must stop selling myself short, now. I must stop pitying myself, now. I came into this world to succeed, and I will, by using the confidence of past successes in my present undertakings, now. I must respect others as well as myself. I must appreciate my own worth. I'm somebody, capable of error, but capable of rising above it, now. And finally, I must remember that negative feelings displace me from my true worth. I resolve now never to be a displaced person. Here is a second self-image builder. Look in the mirror and say to yourself, I'm a modern Sherlock Holmes, the greatest detective of all time. I'm tracking down the hurt feelings and the fears of yesterday. They've prevented me from becoming the better me, and I'm eliminating these fears and frustrations right now. I'm also the greatest archaeologist of the century. I'm digging deep within me to remove the debris of hurt feelings, resentment, hatred that has kept me from self-fulfillment. Underneath all this, I have found a great archaeological discovery, the real me, the better me.
Dr. Maltz, who should be the most important friend in our lives?
Yourself. You should be your own best friend before you should befriend others. After all, if you don't like yourself, who will?
How do I know if my self-image is accurate?
Only by making an accurate self-inventory and comparing it with your self-image.
Dr. Maltz, if I don't like my self-image, can I change it?
Yes, you can. You made your self-image in the first place, and you can change it too.
How do I change my self-image?
First, you must have strong beliefs for deciding that your old self-image is an error. Then you must make your new self-image true and consistent with your real self. You must follow the steps outlined in these lessons for discarding the hindrances of the past, the things that have caused your image of yourself to shrink.
Dr. Maltz, what is the self?
It is the central axis of your existence. It is what makes you unique.
Can I change myself?
Yes, but it is more important to change your self-image first. The rest will follow naturally because you act on the basis of your self-image, not yourself.
What is the first prerequisite for self-discovery?
Honesty. You cannot cheat yourself. You can only fool yourself.
What is the difference between the self and the self-image?
The self-image is the picture you have of yourself.
Dr. Maltz, how long should it take me to get to know myself?
Self-knowledge is a lifetime endeavor. You should make this a goal for the rest of your life. You are your own most important acquaintance.
What should I do with myself when I discover things about it that I don't like?
You become your own plastic surgeon, and you remove your blemishes with compassion, with the instrument of forgiveness. Forgive yourself for your mistakes, and forgive others for theirs.
Maybe you have many of the characteristics of a successful personality, but you aren't happy, or are not satisfied with your relationships with other people. Even if you haven't been scarred by a physical injury, possibly you are still nursing an emotional injury which is affecting your self-image and your personality. When you receive a physical injury, such as a cut on the face, and it heals naturally, scar tissue will form which is both tougher and thicker than the original flesh, because there is a certain amount of tension in the wound, and just underneath the wound, which pulls the surface of the skin back and creates a gap which is filled in by scar tissue. The purpose of the scar tissue is to form a protective cover or shell, nature's way of ensuring against another injury in the same place. When a plastic surgeon operates, he not only pulls the skin together by sutures, he also cuts out a small amount of flesh underneath the skin so that there is no tension present. The incision heals smoothly, evenly, and with no distorting surface scar. The same thing happens whenever we receive an emotional injury, when someone hurts us or rubs us the wrong way. We form emotional or spiritual scars for self-protection. We are very apt to become hardened of heart, callous toward the world, and to withdraw within a protective shell. This does not need to happen. If there is no tension present, there is no disfiguring emotional scar left. The choice is yours. You can feel hurt or feel offended, causing yourself emotional scars. Or you can choose not to respond and react by feeling relaxed and free from injury. We all need a certain amount of emotional toughness and ego security to protect us from real and imagined ego threats. The person with the hard, gruff exterior usually develops it because this person realizes that he or she is so soft inside that he or she needs protection. People with little or no self-reliance who feel emotionally dependent upon others make themselves most vulnerable to emotional hurts. As in the case of a physical scar, excessive protection against the original source of injury can make us more vulnerable and do us even more damage in other areas. The emotional wall that we build as protection against one person cuts us off from all other human beings and from our real selves. People who feel lonely or out of touch with other human beings also feel out of touch with their real self and with life. Emotional scars to our ego have an adverse effect. They lead to the development of a scarred, marred self-image, the picture of a person not liked or accepted by other human beings, the picture of a person who can't get along well in the world of people in which he lives. Emotional scars prevent you from creative living. People with emotional scars not only have a self-image of being unwanted, unliked, and incapable people, but also have an image of the world in which they live as a hostile place. Their primary relationship with the world is one of hostility. Dealings with other people are not based upon giving and accepting, cooperating, working with, enjoying with, but upon concepts of overcoming, combating, and protecting from. People like this can neither be charitable toward others nor themselves. Frustration, aggression, and loneliness are the price they must pay. Once an emotional scar has formed, there is but one thing to do, and that is to remove it by surgery, the same as a physical scar. In removing old emotional scars, you alone can do the operation. You must become your own plastic surgeon and give yourself a spiritual facelift. The results will be new life and new vitality, a newfound peace of mind and happiness. Old emotional scars cannot be doctored or medicated. They must be cut out, given up entirely, eradicated. Forgiveness, when it is real and genuine and complete and forgotten, is the scalpel which can remove the old emotional wounds, heal them, and eliminate scar tissue.
I give you 4 principles of spiritual and psychological relaxation. 1, forgive others. No strings attached. No sense of condemnation. A clean slate. No forgiveness on the installment plan. I love you today, Charlie, old boy, but tomorrow, can't stand the sight of you. Well, I forgive Harry, but I can't forget. Now, what kind of forgiveness is that? With a mallet in your hand ready to strike someone over the head if it suits you. It has to be a clean slate. For whose sake? For your sake. The chances are the person you resent doesn't even know you're alive. You forgive yourself so you can wake on 8 cylinders instead of 2. 2, you forgive yourself. You're only human. You must accept yourself with kind eyes when you look in the mirror. You are somebody. You are a child of God, capable of blunder, but capable of rising above it. And that a blunder is there for you to do something with it. It's a challenge. You are a mistake maker, but thank God you also a mistake breaker. You break that mistake, and that is your golden opportunity of recharging your energies, growing into the big you, taking advantage of an error to become the big you. Forgive others, forgive yourself. 3, you see yourself at your best as a person of confidence, not at your worst as a person of frustration. You are these 2 people. You must make it your business to be the big you a greater share of the time. And finally, 4, accept yourself for what you are. Don't try to be someone else. When you're looking in this mirror and you see someone else's image there that you have to please, you're a dead pigeon. You're playing second fiddle to someone else, and you can't function creatively. You're behind the 8 ball. Get out into the open. Be yourself, accept yourself for what you are, and already you become a happier person.
Pretended forgiveness, which is entered into as a duty, is no more effective than a simulated facial surgery. Your forgiveness should be forgotten, as well as the wrong which was forgiven. Forgiveness which is remembered and dwelt upon reinfects the wounds you are attempting to cauterize. Therapeutic forgiveness is not difficult. The only difficulty is to secure your own willingness to cancel out the debt with no mental reservations. We find it difficult to forgive only because we like our sense of condemnation. We get a perverse and morbid enjoyment out of nursing our wounds. As long as we can condemn another, we can feel superior. No one can deny that there is also a perverse sense of satisfaction in feeling sorry for yourself. True forgiveness comes only when we are able to see and emotionally accept that there is and was nothing for us to forgive. We should not have condemned or hated the other person in the first place. Not only do we incur emotional wounds from others, most of us inflict them upon ourselves. We beat ourselves over the head with self-condemnation, remorse, and regret. We beat ourselves down with self-doubt. We cut ourselves up with excessive guilt. Remorse and regret are attempts to emotionally live in the past. Excessive guilt is an attempt to make right something we did wrong or thought of as wrong in the past. Since we cannot live in the past, we cannot appropriately react emotionally to the past. The past can be simply written off, closed, forgotten, insofar as our emotional reactions are concerned. We do not need to take an emotional position one way or the other regarding detours that might have taken us off course in the past. The important thing is our present direction and our current goal.
I remember I was speaking at one of the first churches of religious science out California on my topic, how to be yourself. One stocky woman got up and told me what a wonderful thing my book, Psycho-Cybernetics, was to her. She read the book and finally, for the first time, learned how to be herself. I said, "Thank you very much." She said, "Don't interrupt." I listened. She said, "Doctor, I want you to know how I became myself through your book. I belong to a women's organization, and the president of this organization talks too much. At all the meetings, she talks too much. I read your book, and I decided to be myself once and for all. And when we had a meeting, the president was talking too much as usual, and I stood up, and for the first time, I was myself, and I said, 'Shut up!' I didn't know how to answer it for a moment, but being a student of self-image psychology, I quickly said, 'My dear lady, you are not yourself. You use my book as an excuse. You must realize that when people use hatred and resentment like you have done, you can never be yourself. You give the worst part of yourself to others. You go back and read the book again. Get rid of your negative feelings. Get rid of the failure mechanism within you. The fear, the resentment, the hatred, and all the things that create frustration and lack of belief in yourself. Get rid of that, and then you will learn to be yourself."
Dr. Maltz advocates that when you give yourself a spiritual facelift by forgiving yourself and others, you'll feel younger, have more vitality, and will actually look younger. Carrying a grudge against someone or against life can bring on the old age stoop, just as much as carrying a heavy weight around on your shoulders would. People with emotional scars, grudges, and the like are living in the past, which is characteristic of some older people. The youthful attitude and youthful spirit, which erases wrinkles from the soul and the face and puts a sparkle in the eye, looks to the future and has a great expectation to look forward to. Why not give yourself a facelift? Your do-it-yourself kit consists of relaxation of negative tensions to prevent scars, therapeutic forgiveness to remove old scars, a willingness to be a little vulnerable, creative living, and a nostalgia for the future instead of the past. If you will try the techniques and attitudes recommended by Dr. Maltz and model yourself after the characteristics of a successful personality for just 21 days, you will be amazed at the results. You can change your life for the better through the principles of psycho-cybernetics and steer your mind toward the productive, useful goal of being content and finding happiness and peace of mind in your everyday life and activities.
You can get self-fulfillment by realizing that you're bigger than what you think you are. When you realize that you're somebody important, when you stop criticizing yourself, when you stop criticizing other people, when you realize that a negative feeling is there for you to hurdle, when you realize you cannot win all the goals, that if you only reach 60% of them, you are a champion in the art of living, when you realize that you cannot be perfect, no one is, that you are a mistake maker, but thank God you're a mistake breaker, when you realize that you should do one thing at a time, that you should live in the present, that when a situation defies solution, you sleep on it, not with it, so you can let your servo mechanism, your success mechanism within you find the answer. When you accept yourself for who you are.